12 children and 3 teachers die in a Russian airstrike on a school in Aleppo, Syria. Russian President Putin acknowledges Western economic sanctions over the Ukraine crisis are hurting Russia. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will run alone in the upcoming primary race for his Likud party at the end of February. Good evening and thanks for joining us at I-24 News. I'm Benjamin Chong-Alfalis. We begin with breaking news. 4 gunmen have charged into a shopping mall in eastern Baghdad on Monday after a car bomb exploded outside. At least 7 people were killed and 27 others wounded in the car bomb blast. Police sources said it was not clear if the assailants, who may have been wearing suicide vests, had killed anyone or taken hostages at the Jawahir Mall in the predominantly Shiite Muslim district of Baghdad Jadida. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack, but Islamic State militants controlling large swaths of Iraq's north and west regularly target Shiite districts and security forces in the capital and elsewhere. At least 12 school children and 3 adult teachers were killed in a Russian airstrike that hit a school in Syria's Aleppo province on Monday. This while a United Nations convoy including 70 trucks filled with food and other aid have set out for the famine-stricken Syrian village of Madaya, a town of 40,000 near Damascus under government siege, where people are reportedly starving to death. Tamara Ziv has the latest in the following report.
Aid convoys have set off for the besieged Syrian town of Madaya, where thousands have been trapped for roughly 6 months by pro-government forces, with the United Nations saying people are reported to have died of starvation. Trucks sent by the International Committee of the Red Cross contain enough basic food supplies to last 40,000 people for a month, and are part of local truce deals agreed to in September between the Syrian government and rebel groups. The villages of El Fua and Kefraya in Idlib province, meanwhile, have been encircled by rebel insurgents, with an estimated 30,000 people trapped. Aid will also be sent to these towns, where the need is also considered extremely dire. The blockade of Madaya has become a focal issue for Syrian opposition leaders, who told a UN envoy last week they will not take part in talks with the government until it and other sieges are lifted. France's Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius on Monday called for sieges of Madaya and other Syrian cities to be lifted, as well as demanding that Syria and Russia stop their military operations against civilian populations.
We discussed the absolute necessity for Syria and Russia to stop the military operations against the civilian population. I mentioned only 2 cities, but there are others, and in particular, that the ordeal of Madaya and all the other Syrian cities besieged by the regime effectively stops.
His comments came as reports emerged that at least 12 children and 3 adults had been killed and roughly 20 seriously wounded after Russian warplanes carried out an airstrike on a school in the town of Anjara in Aleppo province. The nearly 5-year-old war in Syria has killed 250,000 people and left millions displaced in and outside of the country.
Well, President Vladimir Putin acknowledged Monday in an interview with German daily Bild that Western economic sanctions over the Ukraine crisis are affecting Russia. Calling the EU sanctions a theater of the absurd, Putin said the sanctions severely harm Russia's options on the international financial markets. In late December, the EU extended its sanctions by 6 months, arguing that the Minsk peace agreement signed by Moscow has not been fully implemented.
You mentioned sanctions. I think it is a stupid and harmful decision. I've already said that our trade volume with Germany was between 83 and 85 billion US dollars, and thousands of workplaces have been created in Germany as a result of this cooperation. What restriction do sanctions place on us? Access to foreign financial markets? This is not the most difficult problem we have had to live with, but it is bad for our economy.
Lebanese Hezbollah field commanders told the Daily Beast they receive heavy weapons directly from Russia to fight in Syria, underlining Hezbollah and Russia's strategic alliance in the Middle East right now. They said there is a relationship of complete coordination between the Assad regime in Damascus, Iran, Hezbollah, and Russia. Hezbollah, which is listed by the US and the EU as a terrorist organization serving Tehran's interests, said its ties with Russia have strengthened recently. Over the years, Hezbollah grew to be a parallel army in Lebanon, stronger than the national military, but its reputation as a nationalist force has changed since it began fighting in Syria to defend the Assad regime. Over now to Israel, where the Elections Committee of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party approved elections to take place on the February 23rd date for the party's primary race. Critics say Netanyahu moved up the date in order to head up the candidacy of popular opponents waiting in the wings to challenge him, including former party number 2, Gideon Saal. Earlier, we were joined by our diplomatic correspondent, Tal Shalev, who had this to say.
Last month, Netanyahu announced an early primary election for the Likud chairmanship, even though there are no elections in sight, in a move just to consolidate his reign. But no one wanted to run against him because the repercussions of challenging him and then losing are too risky. So the list of candidates closed yesterday with one name only, Benjamin Netanyahu. And today, the Likud Election Committee convened to decide whether to cancel the election and save the approximate $1 million that the elections are predicted to cost. However, Netanyahu was pushing to hold the elections anyway, out of concern that if he doesn't, someone might challenge him before the next general election and claim that the fact that there were no primary elections and appeal to the party's judicial system and claim that he was not democratically elected. The committee accepted his stand and decided to hold an election anyway, with one man running and a yes or no vote. Likud members will have to decide between a ballot that has Netanyahu's name on it and a blank slip. Political pundits and opposition members have been mocking this as an exhibit of a lack of democracy, but Netanyahu says that he led the Likud to a landslide victory in the last elections, and that this is a vote of confidence that he will do the same in the next elections as well.
The European Union has no firm time frame for lifting sanctions on Iran, but the move could come soon, the bloc's foreign policy chief Federica Mogherini said on Monday. She told a news conference the date is going to be related to the full implementation of all the steps that need to be taken, but stressed it could come rather soon. Republicans in the U.S. warned that lifting of the sanctions could take down the U.S. oil industry and further pressure America's Sunni allies. Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, and the United States gathered in the Pakistani capital hoping to lay the roadmap to peace for the war-shattered Afghan nation. The meeting comes as Afghanistan's battlefield losses intensify, and some parts of the country are under constant threat from Taliban gunmen. Taliban representatives who vowed to talk only to the U.S. and not to the government in Kabul were not invited to the talks. The advisor to the Pakistani Prime Minister on Foreign Affairs warned against prematurely deciding which Taliban's factions are ready to talk, urging instead confidence-building measures to get even the recalcitrant Taliban to the negotiating table.
We need to be cognizant that reconciliation process will have to take into account the following fundamentals. One, the process has to be Afghan-led and Afghan-owned, as an externally imposed settlement is neither desirable nor it would be sustainable. The role of the Pakistan, China, and United States is basically to facilitate the process. Two, the political reconciliation by nature is a complex process requiring time, patience, and sense of accommodation by the concerned parties with a view to arriving at a win-win solution.
Turkey's Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu said Turkey is unsettled by anti-Islamic messages in the U.S. presidential race, in which Republican frontrunner Donald Trump called for a ban on foreign Muslims in the wake of a California terror attack. Trump repeated his recommendation in his first TV ad released last week. Çavuşoğlu also dashed any hopes of an imminent normalization in ties with Israel, hinting at Turkish demands for compensation for 10 Turkish militants who died in a violent clash with Israeli forces when they sought to reach Gaza in 2010 on the Turkish Mavi Marmara ship. Legendary singer David Bowie, one of the most influential musicians of his era, has died of cancer at the age of 69. A statement issued on his social media account said he died peacefully, surrounded by his family after an 18-month battle with cancer. Tributes from around the world praised the extraordinary artist, whose last album was released days ago. And those were the latest reports. Join us again in 20 minutes for more. Thank you for watching.